Kipchoge's setup basically is 16-week block for each marathon.
Yeah.
And they do, so his year runs on a kind of a 2 marathon a year cycle. So basically after each marathon takes about a month off and basically doesn't really run for a few weeks. And it's funny, before he actually takes his break, he does a few runs like for a few days before he takes the break to make sure all's in order, which is probably something a lot of people wouldn't do
That's a really
after a
good tip.
marathon. Yeah, because if you come off a marathon, obviously, people will often be like, right, that's me done now for 2 weeks. I'm
Yeah.
not running a step. But he actually does a few runs before he takes his break. Then he takes like 3 weeks off, and
So
then he
sorry,
does a month.
he say he does the marathon on the Sunday. He'll just do like a 30-minute jog or some 40-minute on the
Yeah,
Monday. Same again on Tuesday, but just as a way of going, okay, is there anything aching? Is there anything that I
yeah,
need to correct before I go on my break?
yeah, and just active
Brilliant.
recovery before his break
Brilliant.
as well. So then they do a 4 week preparatory phase, which is basically training to train. And like I asked Kipchoge and Patrick Sang about this, but the best information I got out there was probably off a physio. They have a Spanish physio who's out there, and he's a 2:17 marathoner himself. So he trains with the group and then does all their treatments in between and all.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously he was like, being, I suppose, European, we're more obsessed with like paces and efforts and
Yes.
recoveries and all. The Kenyans aren't as bothered by that. But he was telling me absolutely everything about their training. Like, and I was like, this is great. And anyway, so 4 weeks before they start the 16-week block, which it typically is, they'll go basically between an hour-long run one day and then like an hour of like kind of circuit training, basically in the gym the next day, which is basically kind of, it's almost like step aerobics. They have like little dumbbells in their hands and
Yeah.
they're all sweating together.
So it's
And,
day on, day off of running, and every second day
yeah,
is kind of cross train, like circuity type stuff
yeah. And a
in that
guy I
4 week
know, one of the
block.
other photographers I know, did that workout, and he said you'd be sweating buckets like in that
Yeah,
gym.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it is kind of good intensity, and then the hour is just an easy hour just to kind of familiarize the body. But basically, it's a 3 to 4 weeks of that to basically start to put a bit of strength into the body before they go into the block. The main training block then is 16 weeks, where it's basically carbon copy virtually each week. The intensities come on a bit, or paces come on a bit, but it's Tuesday is 8 to 10 miles of track work, and it might be 16 by a K off a minute or two recovery. It might be 10 by a mile off a minute or two recovery, or it might be like the day I was there was 8 by a mile plus 8 by 400. The miles are in 440.
That's his marathon
400.
pace, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And then
Okay.
so that, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, it's basically at marathon pace, but you're at 8,000 foot of 8,500 foot of altitude as well on a dirt
Ah,
track.
okay. Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So maybe
it's
like half marathon pace for most people, do you think?
probably, I'd say, is, yeah, yeah. And then the other workout day is Thursday is their long run day. That's alternates through the cycle between 30K at a slightly faster pace one week. That probably is close to marathon effort, but for 30K. And then the next week it's 40K at a slightly slower pace, but it's still a good effort. Like
Jesus.
it's
And
that,
is
and
that sorry, that 30K then, is that like kind of K in, K outs, that kind of
no, it's
stuff, or
just it's
just a
it's
steady
on
run?
it from the gun. There's no easing into it. Like they've done their morning run at like 6 a.m. and then that's at like whatever 10 a.m. or something, and then they're straight. It's all business from the out that time. Like they're and then there'll be like, let's say there's 30 people in the group starting together. There'll If Kipchoge's early in his block, there might be one or two with him at the end. If it's late in the block, obviously he's all. And actually, the time I was there was just a marathon. I think he just missed the world record. It was maybe 2021, or had he broken the world record? Anyway, he'd taken the month off, and he'd just come back in the week before to the group. And it was funny, he was going for the Tokyo Marathon the following spring or whatever. So he was just starting his 16 weeks, and he did the long run, and he basically destroyed everyone besides one guy. And all these guys had been like, late in their
Yeah.
blocks, ready for like the New York and Amsterdam Marathon. And Kipchoge, to our point about talent, Kipchoge came back and basically was beaten down on everyone just after
Yeah,
his,
yeah, yeah, yeah. As you said,
break.
like,
So it was like, he said in a way, one of the photographers who worked there was like, who knows Eliud well, was saying it's kind of demoralizing for the other guys because
yeah,
they've
of
been working their
course.
ass off. And then he just shows up after his break and canes them
Just
all again.
blitzing, like, yeah. And these
And
guys
then
have been trying.
basically, yeah, just to complete the week, then the Saturday is the fartlek, and that's like 13 by 3 minutes hard, 1 minute easier, but it's not quite as steady or third workout. And then maybe it's 2 to 4 minutes of hard running, alternating like 1 minute of easy running, but the easy running isn't total jog. It's still like 6 minute miling.
Yeah, and then
Um,
what would the pace of the kind of the 2 to 4 minute rep be?
I I think kind of from what I remember, it's pretty hard. Like it's like the K reps on the,
Yeah, so
it's
kind of
fast. Like
10K effort, kind of essentially.
I would say so. Yeah, yeah. Everyone's working hard, like, and they don't wait around. But it was funny even chatting about recoveries. Patrick Sang was saying like, because they were saying, the workout I saw was meant to be like 90 seconds recovery or something.
Yeah,
And we being Europeans are all like 90 seconds is 90 seconds.
100%,
Like it's
100%.
not 95 seconds, it's fucking
Yeah,
90.
yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
oh, I'm cheating myself. But like then I was watching them and timing it and it was like 2 minutes, 2:15 all the time.
yeah,
Like, and then they were meant to be doing something off 60 seconds and that turned out to be 90. And then your man was telling me, Patrick, basically that, if they're a group, so like maybe the lad Kipchoge's running a 4:40 mile, but maybe there's a lad running a 5 minute mile at the back of the group, and he has to catch up
get
with
his
them on the
recovery.
jog
Yeah,
recovery, the 200 jog. So like they wait around, and also they don't really bother looking at the watch. And it was funny. He said a group of Chinese marathoners came up and trained with them, and they were all like, "Oh, we do the 8 by a mile, but we're doing 1 minute recovery." And Patrick was like, "You're at altitude now. I'd be careful about that." And then they were like, no, no, we do the 1 minute recovery. That's what we need to do. And then like halfway through the workout, all the boys were in absolute bits and
yeah,
then
yeah,
couldn't finish the workout. And Patrick was like, I told you, my friend, you're not at sea level on the road now. Like you're up on a
yeah.
dirt track at altitude. Like,
But that the
so
Africans definitely have that because I was in South Africa and the exact same thing where we'd be really like, oh, the recoveries might be here and the guys could be still 100 meters away. Not like
yeah,
if the essence of the session is done, they don't care about the recoveries. Like,
yeah. And that's what Patrick said as well. He was like, until you're recovered, that's the recovery. Like, you
yeah,
know, whereas I think us, we'd be like absolutely hanging and being like, right, it's 60 seconds. I have to go now. That's not to
yeah,
say that they always take long recoveries because they don't. It's just they're not really hung up on
yeah,
whether it's 30 seconds on or longer or short or whatever. And
yeah,
then, yeah, the rest of
exactly.
his week is pretty easy running with Kipchoge. He does 2 hours on a Sunday at like, I think, what was it? I can't remember the paces. They're up there online, the piece I wrote, but it's a steady effort on a Sunday, and then the rest of the week is just easy running. Like they'll run on, say, the recovery days. It's generally like 10K in the morning, 10K in the evening, or one of the days is 10K in the morning, 20K in the evening, I think. And but that's pretty easy. Like I said, the easy runs will start out. They'll have one really easy run, and that'll start out at like 9 minute miling, and maybe finish at like just under 6 minute miling because they kind of just gradually, as the body's warming up, crank up the pace a little bit. But yeah, that's about all. And they do strength exercises for like an hour twice a week. But it's I did the session with them, the strength session, and there's no weights. Like I think there's one barbell at the camp, and it's just left gathering dust. No one
Yeah,
does
it's
weights.
just
Like, but they said they brought that in a few years ago just to try and
keep
not
them healthy.
just to try and reduce the injury risk. And it's all TheraBands and Swiss balls sort of stuff out in the garden, like 20 of them doing it together. And it's just like, single leg holds, activation, you know more
Yeah,
about all that stuff. But
sports
again,
Pilates.
yeah,
Kipchoge's doing
exactly.
my sports Pilates twice a week.
Exactly. I believe it is on Everard Sports Pilates that Kipchoge does. But yeah,
You heard it here first.
but yeah, that's basically the setup. And it's very simple, but it's the repetitiveness and the ability to repeat it week to week, month to month, and
And
obviously
even in that 16-week block, then, do they do kind of like 3, 4 weeks higher? Like, say, when they're doing that,
no.
it's just roll straight
It
through that.
it's basically the same thing through. It's just the paces start getting faster and faster, I think, as they near it, and they'll hit the long runs harder and harder. Also, the long runs will be kind of on. Obviously, it's probably like
And that's the
70 or
Thursday
80.
long run you're talking about, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
the long run will typically the hard one. That's the one. That's the biggest one of the week. He says like that's the
yeah,
most important one of the week. Because obviously it's mostly marathoners. But he said like it's funny. Patrick was saying they're paving a lot of roads now, the government, as they get more
oh
money.
yeah,
And he was like, we're always running on dirt roads, like, which are fucking unbelievable to run on. Like, it's like
yeah,
running on
yeah,
wood chip
yeah,
because you just have that bit of give. It's beautiful. And that's what they do most of their running on. But then coming into the last 4 or 5 weeks before marathon, start moving more. They'll choose routes that their long runs are on the asphalt,
yeah.
just to get the legs a bit more bulletproof for what they're going to face on marathon day. But he was saying like it's actually funny. The government now think they're like improving things, and they are for most people by paving so many of the roads. But
Yeah,
as runners, like we're kind of like leave the roads alone.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is
Leave at
stuff we
least a
love.
good strip for us, like as I said,
Mm.
because that's like that's what we're famous for over there. That like one, it's harder, but it's so much easier on the bodies. Does he work on gels? Do you see anything like that or no?
On what?
On like gels and making sure like
Yeah, yeah.
fueling.
They have Morton drink, whatever,
Yeah,
are
yeah,
sponsored with them. So yeah, they slug that. And it's funny, like they all have, like your man Patrick will be driving the van and handing out all the drinks on the long run. But that's the only kind of one in the week they drink on, really. And
yeah,
I'd
yeah,
say
yeah,
it's more like the 40K than the 30K. A lot of them will just run the 30K without it. And
yeah.
they really do run. I was asking them even, do they like eat before their runs and stuff? I think maybe the 40K actually, or the long run was actually done the first run of the day at like, yeah, it was at like 6 a.m.
Yeah,
And like again, I was saying, do they eat? And they'll say, your man, the physio lad, was saying some of them might have a banana, maybe like an energy gel or something.
Jesus,
But
mad, isn't it?
basically, the vast majority of them just roll out of bed like half an hour beforehand, and then they're out doing like the equivalent of a kind of a 2:10 marathon, like minutes later, basically on the roads.